This Honorable Superior Court is now open and back in session. The Honorable Judge Randolph. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Judge, good afternoon.
Please be seated. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Your Honor, I first of all want to thank the court for its indulgence. We haven't yet worked out the technical issue. And just by way of background, Your Honor, I intend on playing some residential surveillance footage with this particular witness. It was my understanding that this residential surveillance footage was introduced into evidence as State's Exhibit 81. I provided Mr. Schoenhorn with clips of the surveillance footage because we've put them on a separate disc so that we don't have to watch the entirety of the surveillance footage. And Mr. Schoenhorn has indicated a concern that it's his belief that the video, which has been clipped, has been slowed down and is inconsistent with the speed of the original surveillance footage. And so we're attempting to line them up so that we can verify one way or the other whether or not that's correct, and if so, to take appropriate action. So I don't know if the court can give us just maybe 5 more minutes.
Well, perhaps more like 20 more minutes is more reasonable. If you have to correct something, because first of all, you have to determine whether the representation from counsel is accurate. Then if it is accurate, you have to try to sync it.
Well, Your Honor, it is clear that at least one, if not 2 of the clips have been severely slowed down and then speeded up. The question is whether that's a glitch in the original or whether the copy that Mr. McGinnis wants to use has been altered, not by him, but by somebody. So that's what because that would otherwise not be in evidence. That's the issue.
Perhaps what we should do is take a recess until 2:30. If the problem has been resolved before then, one can notify the clerk, and the clerk can notify the court, and the court can come back into session. So we'll take our recess until 2:30 unless the problem is resolved.
Yes, Judge.
Rise. This Honorable Superior Court is now open and back in session. The Honorable Judge Randolph presiding.
Please be seated, thank you. Are there still concerns with the video?
Judge, I think we've worked through most of them, and I expect that we'll be fine.
Thank you. We can bring the jury in, please.
Famous last word.
Counsel stipulate, please.
Yes, Judge.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, because we are starting a bit late, we probably will not take our next recess until 3:45. Couldn't begin.
Mr. Gumienny, where we left off, we were discussing a conversation that you had on May 28th with Mr. Doulos and the defendant. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
You testified earlier that the defendant had taken your keys from 80 Mountain Spring Road on May 24th, 2019. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did the subject of the defendant having your keys come up during this conversation on May 28th?
Yes, you did.
Can you explain to the jury how it came up?
Doulos was asking me, how do I come back from New Canaan, and how do we met and all that on that day? And I told him that once I get to 80 Mountain Spring Road to pick up my truck, there was no key for it. And he told me not to mention that, not to mention that Michelle had a key.
So you brought up the fact that your key wasn't in the Tacoma, and Mr. Doulos told you not to mention that Michelle had the key?
Yes,
What were his exact words, if you recall?
I can't remember. Let's not mention that, or something like that.
You testified earlier that there was some conversation about which vehicle you were going to take, and that it was agreed that you would take the Cherokee. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes,
Before taking possession of the Cherokee, did you do anything with respect to your Toyota?
yes.
Can you tell the jury what you did?
So I load, I believe some mirrors and some plumbing fixtures, maybe shower heads. They were delivered to the office. I loaded it into the Jeep so I can take him to New Canaan. And then I went back to my Tacoma to grab my tools and put them in the Jeep. And then when I look back behind the seats, I discover a red bucket with blue, I think it was hoodie or jacket,
Where exactly was the bucket?
behind one of the seats.
Behind one of the seats?
Yes,
Okay, do you recall which seat?
I don't.
Had you seen this bucket before?
No,
Did you put the bucket, obviously not in the Tacoma if you'd never seen it before?
no, I didn't.
Describe for the jury exactly what was in the bucket.
Your Honor, I think we need a sidebar.
weeks ago, now months ago, well, I should say days ago. There will be times when there is a discussion about evidence that should be heard outside of the presence of the jury because there is no agreement as to whether certain evidence should be admitted, and counsel wish to argue whether certain evidence should be admitted. And the reason you would be excused is so that you do not hear what that evidence is. So right now, we are going to excuse you. This is not a recess. Counsel will make their presentations, the court will rule, and then you will be brought back in.
Have you heard, Judge?
I
Yes.
think the witness needs to be excused for this, Your Honor.
No objection.
Gumienny, you may wait outside. Well, first, what the court will do, because at the sidebar, Attorney Schonhorn began to state his position, so the court will allow Attorney Schonhorn to speak first.
Yes, Your Honor. What I believe we're about to get into is the discovery of a blue hooded sweatshirt that was found in the red bucket by this witness, who then said that he took it out of his truck and placed it in the laundry room. That's my recollection. This was the subject of extensive litigation, in fact, delayed this case for almost a year. I was represented, just for the court's edification, because I don't know if Your Honor was involved back then. I think it was still Judge White who was handling the case at that time. The issue arose that a hooded sweatshirt was turned over by then attorney Tara Knight, now Superior Court Judge Knight, to the police, to the state police. It was tested by the state police, a navy blue hooded sweatshirt, and it had the, if I recall correctly, the DNA in the neck and maybe in the hood, but on the interior of that sweatshirt. Mr. Gumienny denied that that was his sweatshirt, but then later, after I don't know if he consulted with his attorney or not, later said, yes, I actually have that exact same brand in my closet, and that could have been the sweatshirt, but his recollection is that the one that was shown to him was darker than the one he remembers turning in. Now, what makes this more difficult is the state moved to disqualify me because, if Your Honor may recall from the record, it turned out that in the box that was turned over to by Attorney Knight to the state police, there was a letter of conveyance from my office to Attorney Knight regarding at least some of the items that were in that box. This led to their motion to disqualify me, my motion to therefore disqualify the state's attorney's office because it involved the disclosure and use of an attorney-client privileged communication that I submitted was by my client. As a result, I retained an attorney, Attorney Gulash from Bridgeport, who came here, was involved in extensive negotiations. I think the state, Mr. Forensic, brought in a retired state's attorney from Danbury because of the potential of conflict in their office to negotiate. There were several discussions that I was not privy to. I'll just note, I was here for the court matters, but there were a lot of negotiations going on. And as I understand it, I believe there was some writing, which I don't have with me, that it would be as if that sweatshirt did not exist and the case would proceed without us proceeding with regard to that. My recollection is Mr. Goulash made clear that if a sweatshirt was brought up, that agreement would therefore no longer be in effect, and I'd be allowed to cross-examine this witness regarding that. I hear Mr. McGinnis at sidebar saying, well, that's not his understanding. That's my understanding, and I had an attorney. So if we're going to get into this issue, then I would obviously require the presence of Mr. Goulash regarding the agreement, some of which I think was put on a record, if I'm not mistaken. But having said that, there's the separate issue that they're not going to be able to tie in that sweatshirt. It is completely irrelevant, but to the extent that it might be, I would be entitled now here in the whatever week of trial, third, fourth week of trial, just cross-examine this witness about his denial of knowledge about that and how his DNA was in the interior of it, and then later admitting, well, it very well could have after he checked and he realized he had the identical brand sweatshirts in his closet. So that's where we're at. That's why I'm objecting, and I think that it's certainly prejudicial. It's certainly going to raise issues that I want to keep in mind. I denied and disagreed that there was a conflict of interest that would require me to be disqualified. But that started a very lengthy, months-long process with negotiations between then Special State's Attorney Sedensky and Mr. Goulash. So here we are. Here we're about to get into something that I submit is certainly irrelevant to my client, but it will be clearly prejudicial since I would be prevented from cross-examining this witness about his claim with regard to that sweatshirt and his prevarication to the police about it until he gave it some additional thought.
Well, is that agreement in writing?
Judge, if I really want to be heard, Judge.
Well, the court also wants to be heard.
I understand, but
Not but, counsel. The court is going to be heard. Is the agreement in writing?
it absolutely is.
You may be heard.
Thank you, Judge. And I apologize. I just, as I sit here listening to these arguments, I think it completely distorts the record. And so I apologize to the court for my riding the wave of zeal. But I'd like to just clear up the record once and for all as to this particular issue. In March of 2021, Tara Knight, then Attorney Knight, now Judge Knight, reached out to then Chief State's Attorney Colangelo and indicated that she had evidence related to the Doulos case. Arrangements were made for certain police personnel to go pick up that evidence. When the police personnel arrived at Tara Knight's office, she had a box and she indicated that she was turning over the evidence to them. When they opened the box, there was a letter from Mr. Schoenhorn to Judge Knight in the box, and there was a blue sweatshirt along with some tools. Now, at that point, Attorney Schoenhorn never claimed attorney-client privilege. The evidence was seized. It was subsequently submitted for DNA testing, and Pawel Gumienny was considered, I believe, I don't have the report in front of me, a contributor on that particular blue sweatshirt. Incidentally, the defendant's hair was found on that sweatshirt along with her DNA being on the tools that were in the box, which I think is also relevant here. Attorney Schoenhorn indicated that he would seek to introduce that sweatshirt in evidence in support of, I guess, his theory that Pawel Gumienny was the bicycle rider that was seen on surveillance footage in Exhibit 386, which the court has not yet received into evidence. There's surveillance footage from New Canaan in which a bicyclist rides from the general direction of Waveney Park towards Jennifer Doulos' home. It's our theory of the case that that is Mr. Doulos on his childhood bicycle. I told Mr. Schoenhorn at that point that if you seek to introduce this sweatshirt, which was identified as State Police Exhibit 591 through 596, I believe were the exact item numbers, that it was my position that he would be a witness in the case because he was a necessary witness in the chain of custody at that point. He insisted that he would not concede, that he would not introduce that sweatshirt in the case. We proceeded to file a motion to disqualify him on the grounds that he was likely to be a witness given his stated intent to introduce that sweatshirt into the case. He then hired, he also misstates what Pawel Gumienny said. Pawel Gumienny never said he owned that exact brand. I believe he said, and I'm relying on my colleagues here, Judge, he indicated that he owned similar shirts to that, and he has had similar shirts looking to the one shown to him. So there was never any identification as to the brand. Mr. Schoenhorn hired Attorney Goulash to represent him in a potential disqualification proceeding. Attorney Goulash, for months, negotiated with myself and Attorney Sedensky to basically get us to agree to not introduce the Weed Street footage, which shows the bicyclist, in exchange for Mr. Schoenhorn not using the sweatshirt during the trial. We refused. And we were prepared to proceed with the disqualification hearing. And you'll recall, Judge, because we actually filed a motion to seal the courtroom, and the court granted the motion to seal the courtroom. Attorney Goulash, at the 11th hour, reached an agreement, and I believe I was actually part of this agreement. I was certainly the one standing there on the record when we effectuated it, that Mr. Schoenhorn would agree to not use that sweatshirt, which was identified as Exhibit 591, or any of the items identified as 591 through 596, i.e., the items that were seized at Tara Knight's office. And in exchange for that, the state indicated, well, that he's no longer a necessary witness. Judge White did an extensive canvass of the defendant on the record, and she waived any potential conflict from Attorney Schoenhorn conceding that he would not use items 591 through 596. There was never an agreement, ever, where the state said that we would not mention the red bucket or the sweatshirt inside of it during testimony. And the reason for that, Judge, is because there is no way, absent Mr. Schoenhorn, I guess, potentially testifying, to say that the sweatshirt which was in that bucket is the same sweatshirt that Mr. Schoenhorn turned over to the state police in March of 2022 through Tara Knight. So I think, quite frankly, this is a huge distortion of the record. The stipulation should be in the clerk's file. I believe and I want to be clear, Judge, and I'm trying my best to stay calm. I am saying this in the strongest of terms, that this is a complete distortion of the record, and I'm just going to pass forward the actual agreement in writing, which begins with stipulation regarding state police evidence items 591 through 596.
Thank you. And this is full already, correct?
Well, Judge, that was a stipulated agreement between the parties. I don't know if it was received.
Out of another proceeding.
Correct, sir. Yes.
The stipulation is in 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph reads, and First, the court will put this stipulation into context. The stipulation is an agreement that addresses whether Attorney Schoenhorn is likely to be a necessary witness at trial. That's the context of the stipulation. The defendant, this is paragraph 1, the defendant will not under any circumstances introduce any evidence during trial in the above captioned matters concerning a box or its contents which were seized at then Attorney Tara Knight's office on March 23rd, 2021, and logged into evidence as state police items 0591 through 0596. And the parties will proceed as though the contents of the box do not exist. Now, so that the court is clear, the bucket and the hoodie are not contents of the box? That's a question.
There was never any evidence that they were, Judge. And so, to be clear, the state does not concede that that's the same sweatshirt. As a matter of fact, when Pawel Gumienny was interviewed about it, he indicated that the sweatshirt that he saw was darker in color. And so the only evidence is it wasn't the same sweatshirt.
And there was no bucket in the box, correct?
There was not, sir.
Well, as this was a stipulation between the parties, the court is not going to litigate the stipulation. This is a matter of record. The representation by the state, it is that the bucket and the hoodie were not contents of the box. That's the representation of the state. Attorney McGinnis, specifically as an officer of the court.
Well, I just want to be, I don't want to interrupt, I just want to be clear. There's no evidence that it was, and so that's my position. And the defense specifically indicated that they would not, under any circumstances, introduce those items, and we offered something in exchange for that. But what we offered was not, we did not indicate we would not mention the bucket or the sweatshirt that was in the bucket at all. What we offered was to withdraw our motion.
May I respond?
Yes.
At sidebar, I did not say I intended to introduce the contents of the box. What I said at sidebar is this opens the door to me cross-examining this witness about him being shown a sweatshirt that had been tested by the lab. He was told it had his DNA in it, but he claimed he didn't recognize it. He doesn't know how his DNA got on it. And then later, I don't remember, I'd have to go back and look at the report. At a later time, he contacted the police, I can't remember directly or through his attorney, that said, well, wait a minute, I went back and I looked at my sweatshirts that I have in my closet and I realized that very well could be my sweatshirt. So it goes to the right to cross-examine the witness. I and my attorney took the position that there was no basis whatsoever for me to be a witness, since I never intended to introduce the actual sweatshirt. It's on video that this witness was interrogated about it, shown a sweatshirt. It has the initials CMR, which Your Honor now knows are the initials of Christine M. Roy, since we've seen her name and her initials on dozens of items. And therefore, I wanted to alert the court that as a result of that, I would intend to cross-examine this witness about his reaction to being shown a sweatshirt, his claim that he was shown a navy blue sweatshirt and that it was actually the one he saw was lighter than that he recalls, and therefore it goes directly to the right of cross-examination. But I also want to point out, this is also putting the cart before the horse, because the claim, the court should look at these so-called bicycle videos. It's a misrepresentation that this bicyclist that one sees for approximately 2 or 3 seconds is in any way clear, visible. You cannot tell gender, height, anything. Somebody whizzes by in a camera that's I should note, one of which is stop action. So you see blurry clips. So the fact that this probably is not even relevant anyway, the court should understand this goes down a slippery slope. If it's allowed in, I believe I have the right to cross-examine, and I'm not going to introduce the contents of the box. And that's all I stipulated to. But in addition, if the court, this is the theory. This is the theory that the police made up. There's a bicyclist a half hour away from Wells Lane, riding on a street called Weed Street in New Canaan. It is not even a direct route to Wells Lane, and it's certainly not captured on any cameras near Wells Lane. So to suggest that there is a bucket with a sweatshirt in it, that somehow the court or that the jury should then infer from that from a anonymous bicyclist that this might be the same thing, when there's no evidence of that, and there's no evidence of a bicyclist arriving at Wells Lane, gets back to the issue of what I would get to cross-examine about.
Well, first, as the court reads the stipulation uses the language introduce any evidence. The court is reading that broadly. The court is not reading that as the first party to introduce this evidence is the party that is introducing this evidence. The court reads that as puts into evidence at any time, even through cross-examination. So, again, the fact that the stipulation reads introduce any evidence does not, in this court's view, indicate that the only way that evidence can be introduced is through other than cross-examination. The state does not intend to introduce evidence of the box. The state is introducing evidence of a bucket and a hoodie in the back of the Tacoma. How we get to the box at Attorney Knight's office is a mystery. In other words, the court is indicating that the fact that the state is introducing evidence of a bucket and a hoodie does not carry us to cross-examination concerning a box in the possession of Attorney Knight. So as the court did not read the second paragraph. In exchange for the defendant's agreement not to introduce said evidence and proceed as though the contents of the box do not exist, the state agrees that the first argument in its motion to disqualify filed on October 11th, 2022 is now moot, to wit, that Schoenhorn is likely to be a necessary witness at trial, and thus there is a compelling need for his testimony. In order for us to even understand the stipulation, we have to understand the distinction between what's in the box and what's in the Tacoma. The state is representing that there's no evidence that what was in the Tacoma was in the box.
And I'm representing to the court that it very well may have, and therefore I'm a right to. He was questioned, forget about the box. he was questioned about a sweatshirt. Because when this sweatshirt was turned in, there was no DNA testing, et cetera, et cetera. He was shown a sweatshirt. He didn't recognize the initials on them that said CMR. I'm just looking at notes right now, because this is a videotaped interview with this witness. I mean, technically, to the extent that it is relevant, I could cross-examine about the contents of the video. There's no mention of the box, if I recall, in that interview. He's shown a sweatshirt. He denies that it's his sweatshirt. He then says, well, this looks darker than the sweatshirt that I recall seeing. And the problem is that these so-called blurry videos show a very dark, almost black hooded sweatshirt. So I'm saying this is a slippery slope because it's also putting, as I said, the cart before the horse. The court has to even entertain whether these clips, these fast clips of a blurry bicyclist have anything to do with this case. Anything. There's no one who's going to identify this other than the state claiming that they think it's Fotis Doulos riding on a bicycle. But the only sweatshirt that Mr. Gumienny is shown has his own DNA in it, and he doesn't understand why, and then later says, well, that could be mine.
Again, the court is reading the language shall not introduce broadly. And to put it in lay terms, no mention. That's how the court reads it, no mention at any time. So the court is going to allow the inquiry Of course, these matters are preserved for appellate review. But again, the court is not going to choke the spirit of the stipulation by using, the court is going to use this term, a noose, for the term shall not introduce. We're not going to choke the stipulation for it simply to mean other than in cross-examination. We can bring the jury back in.
I'm not sure I understand. Does that mean the court is precluding me from cross-examining this witness about his interrogation by the police regarding them showing him a dark sweatshirt?
If that is contents of the box, yes.
Well, to be honest, I don't believe that the video indicates where it came from. I'm assuming that's what they showed him, but again, just based on the chronology, but I want to be clear that the court is precluding me from cross-examining the witness about being shown a sweatshirt that they told him had his DNA, that he denied it was his, later said it might be his, but it was a different color. It was darker than the one he recalls seeing in a bucket.
Attorney McGinnis.
Judge, the defendant precluded herself when she entered into this agreement. Mr. Schoenhorn precluded himself when he entered into this agreement in exchange for the state withdrawing a very colorable motion to disqualify. And it is the height of disingenuousness to stand here and say, they showed him a sweatshirt from the contents of the box that I've agreed not under any circumstances to mention and proceed as though it doesn't exist, and then to cross-examine him about those very contents.
The court is in agreement with the characterization that it is the stipulation that precludes the cross-examination, not the court. We can bring the jury in. council stipulate?
Yes, Judge.
You may proceed, Attorney McGinnis.
Mr. Gumienny, I can't remember exactly where we left off, but I think you were discussing a bucket that you had found in your Toyota Tacoma, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was inside the bucket?
I believe it was like hoodie or jacket, blue color.
And what color was the bucket?
Red.
Can you describe the bucket to the jury in terms of its size?
It was smaller than 5-gallon bucket with like a, like little nose in it, like cleaning bucket that it makes it easier to pour it to water to a smaller container.
Did you notice anything else in your vehicle at that time?
No.
What, if anything, did you do with the bucket?
I took the bucket and I went upstairs through the office. I didn't see Dulos there, so I left it in the laundry room. And then I believe I saw him on my way back when I gave him back the key to my Tacoma, and I told him that I left the bucket in the laundry room.
Did he say anything about the bucket?
I said like thank you. I don't recall it.
After you had this conversation with Mr. Dulos, what did you do?
I went to work. Went to New Canaan.
Back to 61 Sturbridge?
Yes,
And what vehicle did you take?
the Jeep.
Where did you park your Tacoma at Fort Jefferson Crossing prior to leaving?
I believe I left it at the grass parking spot.
Now, this week began Monday, May 27th. I want to talk to you about other things that happened during that week, if I could. Did there come a point during that week where you helped the defendant move firewood?
Yes.
Do you recall exactly what day that was?
No.
But you can tell us it's sometime the week of May 27th?
I believe so. Yes.
Where were you moving firewood from?
He has woodshed on right back corner of his property.
And did the topic of Jennifer Dulos' disappearance come up?
Yes.
Who brought it up?
Michelle.
And do you recall what the defendant said to you about Jennifer Dulos' disappearance?
Yes. So Michelle was upset that her and her daughter pictures were posted by the news online, and she said, "I'm gonna kill that fucking bitch when she's gonna turn up." And I said, "Don't say that." And she said that she's gonna be suing the news. She's writing down who posted what pictures. And I believe at that time Dulos walked out of dining room door, and then he was asking us. It like became awkward. He asking us, "Well, what are you guys doing?" And Michelle said, "Nothing. We're just talking." Like, this is how the conversation ended.
And Mr. Gumienny, you've recently disclosed that conversation, is that correct?
Yes.
Why did you decide to recently tell my office about that conversation?
Those things I didn't think people say those kind of things and they don't mean it. And I just wanted to minimize my involvement in all this.
And when you say minimize your involvement, what do you mean?
Like I said, I didn't think that I was supposed to say those kind of things, I guess.
Did there come a point in time that same week where you had a conversation with Mr. Doulos about your vehicle?
Yes.
Do you recall what day this was?
I don't. Ever since I gave police my phone, I basically couldn't recover exactly the dates and times of what things happened when.
Can you give us an estimate as to when this conversation took place?
I believe it was either Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tell the jury, firstly, where that conversation took place.
At Fort Jefferson.
Why did you go back to Fort Jefferson?
When I switched cars on Monday, I left my truck at Fort Jefferson and I forgot to take my vape charger from that truck to transfer it to the Jeep.
Attorney McGinnis, at this point, the dates have not been cleared.
Certainly. You indicated that you believe this conversation took place on Tuesday or Wednesday, so that would have been either May 28th or May 29th, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So you went to get your vape charger, and maybe for those of us that don't know, vaping is electronic.
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Vaping is electronic cigarettes?
Yes.
And you had a charger in your truck?
Yes.
Okay. Approximately what time did you arrive at Fort Jefferson Crossing?
I don't remember. It had to be after lunch.
When you got to Fort Jefferson Crossing, was anyone home?
I didn't see anybody, no.
And because you didn't see anyone, did you make a phone call?
Yes.
Who did you call?
Doulos.
And did he answer the phone?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury about that conversation?
So I call him and I ask him, where's, like, Forrest, you have my truck? And he says, yes, I'm coming back from the car wash. And I told him, you wash my truck? He says, yes. I said to him, thank you, did you get it fixed too? I made a joke out of it. He says, no, just wash.
And did he indicate whether he was coming back to Fort Jefferson Crossing?
Yes, he said, I'm coming back from the car wash.
Did he arrive back at Fort Jefferson Crossing? Approximately how long between your phone call with Mr. Doulos did he arrive at Fort Jefferson Crossing?
I don't know. Not long, a few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
And on which date is this, please?
He's indicating either Tuesday the 28th or Wednesday the 29th.
Thank you.
You're not sure which date, correct? And when he arrived at Fort Jefferson Crossing, where did he go?
He parked the car on the grass parking area.
Were you able to view your Tacoma?
Yes,
How did the exterior appear to you?
it was just wash.
And when Mr. Doulos parked the Tacoma, what happened next?
He opened the door and he started playing with the side handle on the seat. And he told me, what's up with this? This doesn't work. The seats are not original. He told me, they look ghetto, you should get rid of them, you should change them. And I told him, yeah, I know, it's, you know, the truck has other problems, I gotta get to it. It's leaking oil and things like that. And I told him, I'll get to it. But he told me, no, you should change the seats, you should fix the truck, sell it, or lower the price, and sell the truck. I'll give you a good deal on the Jeep.
I'm going to object to hearsay.
The court does not hear it as being offered by counsel for the truth of the matter asserted.
That's correct, Judge.
Overruled.
And I told him, I don't want your Jeep, I need something that's all-wheel drive for snow plowing.
You indicated lower the price on your vehicle. Were you trying to sell your vehicle?
I had that in mind for like a year to upgrade it, to get a better truck, but I didn't post it anywhere or
You told us earlier that you actually would use the Tacoma for snow plowing in the winter, is that correct?
yes,
So having a vehicle that had the ability to hold a mount for a plow was important to you?
yes.
And would the Jeep Cherokee have been,
It was two-wheel drive, it's just not, the Jeep Cherokee wasn't all-wheel drive and
did Mr. Doulos mention you go to a dealership also?
I believe that he mentioned that to me on another day.
When Mr. Doulos arrived back from the car wash, was he alone?
Yes,
Did you see the defendant at any point during this conversation with Mr. Doulos about the car wash?
I don't recall it, no.
Now, after you had this conversation with Mr. Doulos, did you take your Tacoma key back?
I believe when he got out of the truck and he was telling me about the seats, he handed me the key.
Now, did he tell you why he was giving you the key?
No,
What did you do with the key?
I just put it in my pocket.
And did you go home that evening?
Yes,
What vehicle did you take home?
the Jeep.
When you were speaking with Mr. Doulos, did you have a chance to look inside the vehicle also?
When I was when I got in there to grab my Jew charger, I looked inside. Yes,
And how did the interior of the vehicle appear?
it looked clean.
How many years had you been leaving your Tacoma at Fort Jefferson Crossing?
When I was managing projects around Farmington area, I would not drive company vehicles as much. So mainly there was two projects that I did in New Canaan and I believe Darien. There was 175. I can't remember the address. So I want to say like a year, maybe year and a half.
And had Mr. Doulos ever washed your truck?
Prior to that day,
Yes.
no,
Had he ever had the interior of your truck cleaned?
no.
Did you ask Mr. Doulos to do either of those things?
No.
Now, after you went home with the Jeep, did there come a point in time that same week where Mr. Doulos called you about your Tacoma?
Yes.
Do you recall what day that was?
No.
What did Mr. Doulos say to you in that conversation?
He said, he called me and he told me, the news are here, your truck is outside, I don't have a key.
Objection,
If I may, Judge, it's being offered to explain why he went back to Fort Jefferson Crossing.
Doesn't sound like it's going there.
Well, the question was, what did he say? And the response, the beginning of the response was, the news is here. So can you sharpen the question, please, Attorney McGinnis?
Did Mr. Doulos in that conversation ask you to do anything?
Yes.
What did he ask you to do during that conversation?
He asked me to come up to Fort Jefferson and take my truck home or park it in the garage.
And did he tell you why?
because the news were there. And he didn't have a key.
Did you go to 4 Jefferson Crossing?
Yes,
Who did you go to 4 Jefferson Crossing with?
I asked my wife to give me a ring.
Now, by this point, you knew that Jennifer Doulos was missing, correct?
Yes,
Were you nervous at all about the fact that Mr. Doulos had washed your truck?
not until I have this next conversation with him.
At this point, were you suspicious that Mr. Doulos was involved in
Your Honor,
this?
I'm going to object. This is now leading and irrelevant. But certainly, you could ask him how he reacted, but he's asking a leading question.
Well, the testimony so far is that the court is characterizing the testimony. Mr. Doulos had kept the Tacoma out of the possession of the owner for a period of time. And the next question characterizes, were you suspicious having heard that Jennifer Doulos had disappeared?
The previous question, if I may recall, was that he went and picked up the car and his wife brought him there. So it wasn't about there was nothing about him keeping the vehicle at that time. He had taken the key. He was asked to take the car because, quote, the news was there. And then we get into, well, were you suspicious at this point? And that's what I'm objecting to.
Well, the court understands counsel's concern, but the evidence already is that at some time before this conversation, Mr. Gumienny wanted his truck at a certain time and it wasn't given to him. And so the question as the court hears it is, taking all of this into account, including the disappearance of Jennifer Doulos, did you become suspicious? Overruled.
Mr. Gumienny, at this point, were you suspicious that Mr. Doulos was involved in the disappearance of Jennifer Doulos?
Not at this point, no.
Can you tell the jury why not?
I knew this guy for a very long time, and I trusted him that he was a good guy.
I want to direct your attention now to Thursday, May 30th, 2019. Did you have another conversation with Mr. Doulos about the seats?
I believe that was the Thursday when I had the conversation, yes.
What was the date again, please, counsel?
May 30th, 2019.
Thank you.
How did that conversation begin?
I believe he started with telling me if I wanted to go down the road to the Chevy dealer and see if I can buy a small Chevy. And I told him that I don't like Chevys, I like Tacoma. And he told me, he asked me where can I buy seats? Junkyard? And I told him, yeah, I think I can get them in Junkyard. He told me, go to Junkyard, get Tacoma seats or some other seats, pay cash, and I'll reimburse you for it. And then there was conversation about work. He asked me what I was gonna do tomorrow, and I told him I have to go to New Canaan. I believe I had to meet with the gutter guy, and I had some other things to do over there. And he told me yes, so go do that, and after go to Junkyard and buy seats. And he told me if I call you or if we talk about it on the phone, let's not call it seats, let's call it hardware.
Was this conversation that you were having with Mr. Doulos in which he referenced the term hardware in person or over the telephone?
I believe in person
Do you remember where it was?
at Fort Jefferson.
Do you remember about what time of day it was?
I know.
When Mr. Doulos indicated that he wanted to refer to the seats as hardware, how did you react?
I didn't know what to say. I was shocked. I didn't say anything.
Did you agree to try to find seats?
I did win, next day I did win to the junker.
After this conversation, were you growing nervous or suspicious about Mr. Doulos?
Yes.
So why did you agree to go to a junkyard?
I didn't want to lose my job. I had a wife, 2 kids. He was my main income, health insurance. And on top of all that, I have a non-compete signed with him, so if I lose my job, I'll have to move out of state, basically. There was a guy who used to work for him and quit his job, and then he was going after him really hard with the non-compete.
When you say he was going after him really hard, you're referring to Mr. Doulos going after the former employee really hard? Is that correct?
Yes.
What were your plans for Friday, May 31st, 2019?
I was gonna go and meet with the gutter guy at 61 Sturbridge, and I have some things I was doing at 61 Sturbridge, and I believe in that week I had a flood in the basement. I might have brought some dehumidifiers and set them in the basement.
And had you been in communication with Mr. Doulos during the course of that week about the project at 61 Sturbridge?
Yes, I believe so.
And would that communication have been over the telephone?
Yep.
Approximately, well, did you travel to 61 Sturbridge on Friday, May 31st?
I believe so, yeah.
What time did you arrive?
I don't remember.
What would it have been, morning, afternoon, evening?
It would have been morning.
And when you arrived, what was going on at the house?
I believe the gutter guy was there. I met with him, and I could have set up the humidifiers in the basement.
Approximately how long were you at 61 Sturbridge?
I believe I left shortly before noon.
Was the gutter guy still there?
Yes.
After you left 61 Sturbridge, where did you go?
I was driving back towards Farmington.
And are you still in the white Jeep Cherokee at this point?
Yes.
When you were on your way back towards Farmington, did you receive any phone calls?
I believe Doulos called me, yes.
What did Mr. Doulos say to you?
He asked me if I was gonna go and get the hardware, meaning the seats.
Was this the first time he had referred to the seats as hardware with you over the telephone?
I believe so, yes.
What were you thinking as he said this?
Objection.
Well, what were you thinking when he said, are you going to go get the hardware? Ground.
Speculation, irrelevant. His what he was thinking. For all I know, he was thinking about going to the movies.
Well,
Maybe I
the
can
que-
ask.
the question can be asked in a different way, so as asked, sustained.
Mr. Gumienny, when Mr. Doulos referred to the hardware, were you thinking about going to the movies?
No.
What were you thinking?
Again, and speculation and relevance.
Well, the witness would know what he was thinking. However, what can be asked, because what the witness was thinking may not have become what the witness acted on. So perhaps it can even be a sharper question than the beginning.
After Mr. Doulos asked you whether or not you'd taken care of the hardware, what did you say?
He said, I'm gonna go and look and see if I can find any.
Were you feeling nervous at this point?
Yes, I was, trying to figure out what's going on.
How was Mr. Doulos acting with you on the telephone? Was he acting normally? Was he acting out of the ordinary?
No, I'm going to object to the word acting. There's a way to ask this question, but how does he know how he's acting over the phone?
Well, counsel is left to the manner in which he wishes to ask the question. So that's overruled.
How was he acting, sir?
He was speaking normally.
After this conversation, where did you go?
I went to junkyard,
Which junkyard?
Troconis in Southington.
Approximately what time did you arrive at the junkyard?
I'm guessing around maybe 1 o'clock.
And when you got to Chuck and Eddie's in Southington, what did you do?
I was just walking around and thinking about what's going on. Why does he want me to change the seats? I was trying to analyze him that Friday when I met with him on the 24, you know, and I was trying to thinking like, how do I get out of it, not to get fired basically, and not to change the seat.
Did you end up purchasing seats at the junkyard?
No,
How many vehicles does Chuck and Eddie's have?
I don't know. I guess probably 400.
Did you walk around the junkyard?
Yes.
Did you decide not to purchase any seats?
Yes.
Incidentally, you testified earlier that you referred to Mr. Urso by one of Mr. Doulos' attorneys. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you ever speak with Mr. Doulos or his attorney at the same time during that week of May 27th?
I did.
And did the subject of your green card status come up during that conversation?
Over the phone? No.
Did it come up at any point?
Yes.
When did it come up?
I don't remember the date. He sent me
Let's just be clear, when you say he, who's that?
Doulos. Send me, I believe his lawyer phone number and his best friend, Mark Marcial. And he told me I send you some phone numbers in case if you get approached by police or something, don't talk to them. Call the lawyer, have them talk to the lawyer. And I told him I can just talk to them and I can just tell them where I was. Like, why do I need a lawyer for? And he told me that no, you don't understand. You're on your green card here. You don't want to talk to police. They're gonna put you in the corner. They're gonna ask you questions. They're gonna lie to you. They're gonna threaten you that they're gonna arrest you and deport you out of here. You don't want to do that. Just have them talk to the lawyer.
How did you feel as he was saying these things?
Your Honor, could we get a time frame first of all, and second of all, it's, I thought he said it was an email, now it's sounding like it's a telephone conversation, which I'm not sure I understand. And then third, how does he feel about that is irrelevant.
So
Well,
Judge,
first, if the whole thing is irrelevant, we need not address the first two. Overruled.
how did you feel after this conversation about your green card status?
Well, I don't think he said anything, the question had it.
Well, this is now the question. If the other question was different, apparently it has been abandoned. So you can ask the question again, Attorney.
How did you feel after this conversation about your green card status?
Well, I'm going to object. I don't believe his answer said anything about his green card status.
Well, the response was, you don't want to talk to the police. They'll put you in a corner. They'll lie. And something about the green card.
Also that he would be deported.
So overruled.
You may answer the question.
I just told him, I said, I don't understand why you don't want me to talk to the police. I can just tell them where I was and what's going on.
How long did you walk around Chuck and Eddie's for?
I want to say like an hour, maybe two.
And did you eventually leave Chuck and Eddie's?
Yes.
Where did you go?
I went to second junkyard. It was more like a used parts junkyard. And I asked the guy there at the register if I gave him my year and model of my Tacoma, and I asked him if he has the seats for that kind of truck. And he told me yes. They were like $150, and you can have them in 2 days.
If you were growing increasingly suspicious about Mr. Doulos, why did you go to the second junkyard?
Because I was like thinking about what's going on and how to get out of it, and I wanted to go back to the office and tell them that I can't find him and I can't change him.
Did you make a deal with the person at the second junkyard for the seats?
No.
After not making the deal, what did you do?
I stopped by one more body shop in, I believe it was Plan B or Bristol.
And what did you do there?
I asked the guy if he has some seats for my truck, and then if he can fix some mechanical issues.
And did he have seats?
He showed me 2 vehicles and told me you can have those, and I told him no.
After this third junkyard, what did you do?
I went back to the office.
Approximately what time of day was this?
I want to say 3:30, 4 o'clock, maybe 2:30. I can't really remember.
And on what day is this, Attorney?
Friday, May 31st, correct?
Thank you.
Yes.
When you arrived at Fort Jefferson between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, where did you go?
I went upstairs to the office.
When you got into the office, was anyone present?
Doulos was, yes.
Did you speak with Mr. Doulos at that time?
Yes.
What did you say to Mr. Doulos?
I just couldn't hold it anymore, and I just went off on him. I told him, what's up with my truck? Why did you clean it? And he smiled at me and says, because you were never gonna do it. And I told him, seriously, why did you clean my truck? And he says, don't worry about it, there's nothing going on. I went to Jennifer's house for Mother's Day, I gave her a hug, I hold the cat. And then I came back and then I was having the same clothes and I was driving your truck. There might be hair in it or something, I just want to clean everything. The police might come in, they find something, they're gonna destroy my name, destroy the company name, no one's gonna ever want to build it with me. And I said, why you want me to change the seats? What's up with the seats? And he said, like, can we not talk about it? Can you just do it? And then he keep on pressing me on it. And then
Let me stop you there. When you said he keeps on pressing you and pressing you, can you describe his demeanor for the jury?
yeah, he like he was growing angry and he keep on saying like, you gotta do it. You can you do it?
Did he appear scared?
At a little bit later point.
After he pressed you, did you make any suggestions to him?
Yeah, he become scared and angry when I told him that I went to a couple junkyards. I can't change him because I don't physically have him. I couldn't buy him. And what do you want me to do? And then he kept pressing and he was growing angry. And I finally said that the only seats I can think of would be the Cayenne seats. And he says, yeah, do that.
And just to refresh the member's memory, the Cayenne is the Porsche Cayenne at 585 Deer Cliff Road.
Yes.
And after Mr. Doulos said, yeah, do that, what happened next in the conversation?
I went to 585.
Well, let me ask you this before we get there. Did Mr. Doulos offer to help you?
Not at this point.
Okay. So what happened next?
I went to 585 and I opened the door. There was like two huge exterior house doors right next to the Cayenne. I had to move those. I opened the door, I got into the Cayenne and the battery was dead and I couldn't, the seats were electric, I couldn't move them back and forth to get to the bolts. So I was like, screw that. I went back to Fort Jefferson and I told him, listen, the seats are electric, the battery is dead, I can't move him, I can't do it, I'm not gonna do it. He says, no, you gotta do it, get the battery booster, get the wrench, and get him, take him out, change him, and get rid of him so nobody will ever find him. And then I think this is when he offered me, I'm gonna go with you, I'm gonna help you.
And after he said, get rid of them so no one will ever find them, and offered to help you, did you accept his help?
No.
Mr. Gumienny, Did you ever directly ask Mr. Doulos whether or not he had killed his wife?
No.
Why not?
I didn't, it wasn't fitting in my head that he'd have been capable of doing such thing, and I just didn't want to lose my job.
Why did you think you would lose your job?
Because he would get angry with me.
After this conversation with Mr. Doulos, what did you do next?
I went to 585. I connect the battery jumper. I moved the seats back, and then I couldn't. I didn't have the kind of range, so I went down to Advance Auto or AutoZone store down the road in Avon, I believe. And I got the wrench, and I came back, and I unbolted the seats, put them in the Jeep, pushed the big doors back into the garage, closed the door, and went back to Fort Jefferson.
And when you say you took the seats and put them in the Jeep, we're referring to the Jeep Cherokee, correct?
Yes.
What area of the Jeep Cherokee did you put the seats?
I believe I folded down one of the folding seats on the back, and I used the trunk area.
How long did it take you to remove the seats?
Like with that time that I went to AutoZone and all that,
No, the actual time to physically remove them, once you had the wrench.
I want to guess like half hour maybe.
And after you put the seats in the Jeep Cherokee, where did you go next?
Fort Jefferson.
Is this a good time for break, Judge?
Yes, we'll take our afternoon recess, ladies and gentlemen. Till 4 o'clock, please do not discuss the case.
This court is now open and back in session.
Please be seated. Bring the jury in, please. Counsel stipulate.
Yes, Judge?
Yes.
May I inquire?
Yes.
Mr. Gumienny, where we left off, you had put the Cayenne seats inside of the white Jeep Cherokee. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
And after you did that, where did you go?
I drove back to Fort Jefferson Crossing.
Approximately how long did it take you to get to Fort Jefferson Crossing?
1 minute.
Can you describe the road Fort Jefferson Crossing for the jury?
It's I want to say dead end road, with like a cul-de-sac on the back, on the end. So it kind of goes in. There's houses, and then there's like a turnaround, and then goes back out.
So would it be fair to say that there's only one entrance and exit to Fort Jefferson Crossing?
Yes.
When you turn onto Fort Jefferson Crossing, is Fort Jefferson Crossing on the right or the left if you're driving?
The Fort
I'm gonna
Jefferson
object.
Crossing.
Driving from where?
Well,
it's one
it's
entrance.
a one entrance to Fort Jefferson Crossing, so if you're driving, the court understands it to be, if you're driving towards Fort Jefferson Crossing, is it on the right or the left?
That's correct, sir. Is it, if you're driving to Fort Jefferson Crossing, would it be on the left or the right?
Well, again, I'm sorry.
Counsel,
the
you
street
can't
goes-
come in, you can't come into Fort Jefferson Crossing jumping over the cul-de-sac. There's one entrance.
But driving, you turn left or right, depending on whether you're going north or south, so that's why I don't understand the
The court
question.
understands the testimony that you can't enter Fort Jefferson Crossing by any other way than the one way that leads in.
If I may just explain, Your Honor, it's my understanding from the maps that, and I've been there, Jefferson Crossing intersects with Eli Road, and we're talking about entering Jefferson Crossing. You can go from the left, turn left, or if you're coming from the other direction, you turn right. So I'm just finding the question confusing.
Well, the court understands the question to be, once you're on Jefferson Crossing, is 4 on your left or on your right?
That's correct, Judge. Once you're on Jefferson Crossing, is 4 on your left or your right?
On the right.
And are there any houses before Fort Jefferson Crossing? Or is
Yes.
it- What address is that?
I believe it's 2 Jefferson Crossing.
And when you were driving towards Fort Jefferson Crossing and it's on your right, did you see anything?
I saw a couple cars with some people there.
Did you know who they were?
Not at the first look, no.
Did you think that they were police officers?
Could have been.
How fast were you driving at this point?
I was going pretty slow.
Did you stop at Fort Jefferson Crossing?
No.
Why not?
I saw cars there, and I just didn't want to bother anybody, and I just kept driving.
Mr. Gumienny, was the fact that you had these seats in the back of your Jeep also a factor in not stopping?
No.
Where did you go after you passed Fort Jefferson Crossing?
I went to the end of the road, I turned around, and I was slowly driving back.
And as you were slowly driving back, as I understand it, 4 Jefferson Crossing would now be on your left-hand side, is that correct?
Yes.
Where were you going at that point?
I was driving back slowly, and the police came to the road, and they signed me to stop.
And did you stop the vehicle?
Yes.
How many police officers approached you?
I don't remember. I want to say 3 or 4.
Do you remember a trooper named Detective Michael Butin approaching you?
Yes.
Did Mr. Butin ask you where you were, excuse me, did Sergeant Butin ask you where you were coming from?
Yes.
What did you tell him?
I believe I told him I was coming from New Canaan.
Why did you tell Sergeant Butin that you were coming from New Canaan?
I don't remember. I could have misunderstood. I could have not. I don't remember.
Had you been in New Canaan earlier in the day?
Yes.
Were you asked to step out of the vehicle at any point?
Yes.
And what happened when you were asked to step out of the vehicle?
He asked me if there is, if I have any drugs or if there's any weapons in the car.
And what did you say?
I said no.
Did you give permission to search the vehicle at that time?
He asked me if they can look or search the car, and I say yes.
Were you nervous at this time?
I don't know. I mean, my heart is going. I just had a heated conversation with Doulos, and I was just removing the seats and fighting with the big doors in the 585.
Well, let me ask you this: Were you concerned about the fact that the police were at Mr. Doulos' home?
I didn't have time to think. It was just everything was happening fast.
And did you tell Sergeant Butin at that time that you were, well, strike that. Did Sergeant Butin ask you about the seats in the back of the Jeep?
Yes,
And what did you tell him you were doing with the seats?
I told him that I removed them from the crash can at 585, and I was planning on putting them in my truck.
Did you tell him that you were doing that at Doulos' instructions?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the leading nature.
Well, it is leading, but you can
I'll
rephrase it.
withdraw, I'll actually withdraw that, Your Honor, so, go ahead.
Did you tell him that you were doing that at Doulos' instructions at that time?
No,
Why not?
he didn't ask.
And why didn't you offer it?
I didn't want to get into that. I didn't know what to do.
Was a request made of you around this time?
Can you?
Sure, I'll try to sharpen the question. Were you asked to call Mr. Doulos?
Yes.
Do you remember who asked you to call Mr. Doulos?
I don't recall who did it. I believe could have been Detective Butin, or it could have been, I can't remember the other detective name, older.
Did you meet a Sergeant Al Bisson?
Yes,
So it could have been Detective Butin or Sergeant Bisson?
yes,
And did you call Mr. Doulos?
yes,
Did he answer the phone?
yes.
What did you say to Mr. Doulos?
I told him there's the police is here and they wanted to talk to him.
And did he indicate where he was?
I don't recall if he told me that or he told the detectives there, but I found out that he was at the pond where he water skis and he's coming back.
When you'd spoken to Mr. Doulos earlier in the day about the seats, did he indicate to you at that time that he'd be going to the ponds later in the afternoon?
No.
What time of night is this, or what time of day is this?
I don't remember. It had to be around 5 o'clock maybe.
And did one of the troopers actually take your phone and walk away with it?
Yes,
How long did they have the phone for?
a few minutes.
And when you gave them, did you give them the phone at that time?
Yeah, when I started talking to Doulos, he asked me like, let me talk to him, and then I just hand him the phone.
And were you asked to go to the pond at that point?
Yes,
Do you remember who asked you to go to the pond?
I don't.
What is the pond?
It's a self-storage area with like a lake on the back where Doulos and his friends go water skiing.
Had you ever been water skiing with Mr. Doulos?
No,
Had you ever been water skiing with the defendant?
no.
What was your purpose in going to the pond at approximately 5 o'clock p.m. on May 31st, 2019?
I was asked to go and pick up Michelle with her daughter and her mom, I believe.
And did you go to the pond and pick them up?
Yes,
Was that in the Cherokee?
I believe so, yes.
And where did you bring them initially?
Where?
Yes.
Back to Fort Jefferson.
And was there additional police presence at Fort Jefferson at this time? Or the same amount of police presence?
I don't remember.
Did you eventually bring anyone to a hotel?
Yes,
Who did you bring to a hotel?
Michelle mom and Michelle daughter.
Approximately how much time elapsed between when you were first stopped by Detective Butin and when you left Fort Jefferson Crossing to bring the defendant's mother and daughter to the hotel?
I don't remember. Might be an hour.
I want to direct your attention now back to the Cayenne seats, which were in the Jeep Cherokee. After you dropped the defendant's mother and daughter at the hotel, where did you go?
I went home.
And when you went home, did you change the seats?
Yes.
Explain to the jury where the Tacoma was when you arrived home in Simsbury.
I don't remember if it was in the garage or it was standing outside. It was out of my house.
And when you changed the seats, can you just describe that process for the jury, how you went about doing that?
So I unbolt the Ford seats that were installed in Tacoma. I took them out and I put the Cayenne seats in, and the legs of the seats, they won't match the Tacoma holes in the floor. So I had to cut out the bottom rails of the Ford seats to transfer them to the Cayenne seats. And I removed the seat cover from I believe the driver's seat and the sponge, so I could get in there with the angle grinder, and I didn't want the seat to catch on fire because it creates a lot of heat and sparks. And I took some additional measurements and I just left that. I just stopped doing it.
Well, when you say that you took the seat cover off what you believe to be the driver's side seat,
Yeah.
are you referring to the Ford seats that were in your Tacoma, or are you referring to the Cayenne seats?
The Ford seat that was in the Tacoma.
And were you able to get both Ford seats out of your Tacoma?
Yes.
At that point, what did you do with the Cayenne seats?
I put them in a Tacoma and I put the Tacoma seats next to my truck in the garage.
Were you able to fully install the Cayenne seats into the Tacoma?
No,
Why not?
because the holes pattern with the Tacoma, they weren't matching. Like I couldn't bolt them.
So what did you do with the Cayenne seats?
I just put them in the truck and I left them there.
Did you put them on top of anything?
No, I just put them in the cab like where they belong. Just didn't bolt them down.
The Ford Focus seats that you removed from your Toyota Tacoma, you indicated that you put them next to the Tacoma.
Yes.
Can you tell the jury why you did that?
I wanted to keep him just in case if there's anything going on with the truck. If the police is asking about it, I just wanted to keep him next to it.
Were you concerned at this point that those seats may have been used in a crime?
I have my doubts, but I still couldn't fit in my head that Doulos would go and do something to Jennifer.
And do you recall whether or not you were in touch with Attorney Urso that night also?
I don't remember that. I know at some point somehow I got connected with Attorney Urso, but
Well, I want to fast forward to June 2nd, 2019. Did state police personnel show up at your home?
that was Sunday.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Do you recall who showed up?
Detective Newton and I don't remember the other detective name.
Approximately what time did Detective Butin and the other detective arrive?
I don't remember.
By June 2nd, 2019, had you learned that Mr. Doulos had been arrested?
Yes,
How did you learn that?
I believe I saw it on the news.
And did you also learn that the defendant had been arrested?
I believe so, yeah.
Now, did Detective Butin and the other detectives speak with you about your whereabouts on May 24th, 2019?
Yes,
And did Detective Butin indicate that he would be seizing your phone?
yes,
And did he ask for consent to search the phone?
yes,
And were you willing to provide consent to search the phone?
yes.
And I believe, is it true that Attorney Urso spoke with Detective Butin and the other detective at that time on the telephone as well?
Yes,
And did you end up agreeing to have them take your phone?
yeah. So first I agree, and I told them, let me just call my lawyer and just make sure this is okay. And I believe Urso told me, if they want to seize, they can seize, but they need a warrant to search it. And I told them, listen, I have nothing to hide. I rather give him sign the paper or whatever it was, so they can download it and give it back to me quickly. And he agreed with it.
And so did Detective Butin take the phone?
Yes,
And you now know that that phone has been downloaded, correct?
yes,
And is it true, sir, it's been brought to your attention that there were deleted items on your phone?
police told me that, yes.
Deleted items relating to
I'm going
search?
to object to leading nature.
Well, the first question was, are you now aware that there were deleted items on your phone? The answer was yes. Now, the question is, those deleted items were or referred to, well, the intermediate question is, do you know what the deleted items were?
He indicated the police told him.
Counsel, the intermediate question is, do you know what the deleted items were? That's a yes or no.
Do you know what those deleted items were?
No,
Did the police tell you that there had been searches related to the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos on your phone?
at some point, yes.
Did you do any searches on the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos?
I'm sure I did, yes.
Do you know how those items were deleted from your phone?
Well, objection. He didn't know what was deleted, and now he's being asked, does he know how? So I object.
Well, again, the witness testified he didn't know which items were deleted. So this is not the best witness to determine which items were deleted. So sustained.
Mr. Gumienny, you had what type of phone in 2019?
I believe that was iPhone 6.
And did you ever clear your search history on your phone?
All the time.
Why?
I just am in the habit of doing that. I must have been someone told me a long time ago that there might be slowing down my phone or something.
When Detective Butin was at your home, did you tell him about the Ford Focus seats that were in your garage, detached from the Tacoma?
I don't believe we have the conversation then, no.
Why didn't you tell Detective Butin about the seats at that time?
I didn't want to talk to them without the presence of my lawyer about that subject
Why not?
because I was on my green card and I was worried that I might be charged with something.
And did you tell them that you would speak to them again with your attorney present?
I told them, I asked him to set up a meeting with me and my attorney, and I can tell him give him some more information.
Where was the Tacoma parked when Detective Butin was at your residence?
It was in garage.
Did Detective Butin and the other detective ever go into your garage at that time?
No, they asked me about the license plate and where the truck is, and I told them it's in my garage, and I don't remember the license plate.
Now, did they eventually leave your house?
Yes,
And did they return the same day?
I believe so, yeah.
Approximately how long after they left your house did they return?
Don't remember.
Why did they return?
Well, I'm going to object to that, Your Honor. How would he
Well,
know why
the
they?
foundation is sustained.
Did the detectives tell you why they were returning?
I don't remember.
Did the detectives indicate to you whether or not they would be taking the white Jeep Cherokee?
Again, I'm going to object to the hearsay nature and the leading question.
Well, the focus of the questions right now is, did they tell you, did the detectives tell you the reason they returned? And so, if the objection is hearsay, the court is not certain it is being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. If the objection is hearsay, it's overruled.
Did the detectives tell you that they were going to be taking the white Jeep Cherokee?
Yes.
Incidentally, why were you still in possession of the white Jeep Cherokee?
I don't know. I just have it. I just took it home that Friday, and it was just at my house.
Do you recall a tow truck coming to your house and taking the Cherokee?
I don't recall seeing the tow truck, but yeah, they took the Jeep, so it must show up at some point.
And did there come a point in time later on that same week where the police came to your house again?
Yes.
And I'm referring specifically for the members' benefit to the week of Monday, June 3rd, 2019. Do you recall exactly what day that week they returned?
No.
Do you remember who came to your house?
I don't.
Does Sergeant Al Bisson sound familiar?
Yes.
And were you home when they arrived?
Yes.
What time of day was this?
I don't remember.
Did Sergeant Bisson make a request of you?
Yes, he was asking me if there's access to the power line trails from the main road. And I told him that I know of at least 2 places where you can access.
And so did he ask for your help in locating those places?
Yes,
And did you agree to go with him?
yeah, he asked me if I can take my vehicle and go with him.
And what vehicle did you take?
Eventually, I took the truck.
When you say eventually, you tried to use your wife's vehicle first?
Yes,
Okay. Why did you do that?
because the truck seats weren't attached to it, and I just figured that, you know, my wife's vehicle would be better to drive.
Now, at this point, had you told Sergeant Bisson about the seats in your garage yet?
No,
Why not?
you didn't ask.
What happened after you took your truck?
We went up to the top of the Ava Mountain, and I showed him one place where it was like up on the top of the Ava Mountain. You have to turn left, and then you can access the trails. And we missed that, and I pulled forward down with the truck on there's like a parking spot on the right, and I was trying to turn around, and I stopped, and then he pulled right next to me, and he handed me a search warrant for my truck.
And at that point, did he indicate to you that the state police would be taking your Tacoma?
Yes,
After they told you that they would be taking the Tacoma, what did you do?
I told him that that's okay. The only thing is the seats that are in the truck are not the seats that were in the truck at the May 24. And I told him I asked him if he could go back with me to my house to take the seats.
Did you also go through the trails with Sergeant Bisson at any point that day?
Yeah, I believe on our way back, we turned into that place where I was trying to show him. And I think I took them to West Hartford Reservoir.
And was that before or after they told you about the search warrant?
I don't remember. Could have been after.
Well, were you in their vehicle or yours?
In their vehicle. So it had to be after, yeah.
And after you told Sergeant Bisson that the seats that were in the Tacoma hadn't been in the Tacoma previously, what happened next?
We drove down to my house and I opened the garage door and I gave him the seats.
Why did you decide to give Sergeant Bisson the seats at that moment?
Because I didn't want to be hiding anything.
Where did you give Sergeant Bisson the seats?
Where?
Yeah.
At my driveway.
Had you put the cover back on the driver's seat at this point, or did you give it to him with the cover still?
No, I kind of kept them separately and all together in one place. They weren't back on, no.
Now, I want to direct your attention now to July 12, 2019, so approximately a month or so later. Did you submit to an interview with the state police?
Yes,
Approximately how long did that interview last?
about 8 hours.
Who was present for that interview?
I know there was me, Lindy Urso, Sergeant Buton, and some other detective. I don't recall his name.
Detective Chris Allegro?
Possible.
Where did this interview take place?
Stanford. I don't remember the address.
At a police department?
Yes.
And during the course of that interview, did you provide a DNA sample to the state police?
Yes, I did.
Did they have a search warrant for your DNA, or did you consent?
I consent.
And how did they take the DNA sample?
They just do a swab on the inside of the chick.
And where did this swabbing take place?
Where?
Yes, sir.
Like inside of?
No, I'm sorry. Was it at the police department as part of this interview?
Yes.
Judge, I have some exhibits. I don't know if this is a natural breaking point before we get too far into those.
Probably. It's a natural break. If you wanted to introduce exhibits, it's probably a good idea to introduce them fresh tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, we will conclude today. We plan to start tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Please do not discuss the case. Please do not follow the case on any media. Have a good evening.
Delay between the state's case and my case, and that I don't want to occur. I want to, we have to argue motions, obviously, at some point, but, I have people coming from all over the country, so.
Well, would not that be just a discussion between you and the state?